Hi folks, Bob Manor from Manor Law Group. Just going to talk to you a little bit about retirement assets right now. Now this has become really relevant because of the recent passage of what they call the Secure Act, which passed in December of 2019 and then was enacted, took effect January 1st, 2020. So they didn't give us a lot of time. But actually, the distinction between retirement assets and other assets has always been a really important distinction when it comes to estate planning. But all of that has changed and it's even more important now that we have a distinction and we know the difference between these types of assets. So it really relates to what happens when you die, right? So how it's going to interact with your will, how it's going to interact with your trust. In the past, I've often heard people say that, okay, we're just going to have the retirement assets ignore the trust, ignore the will. They're just going to be going through beneficiary designations. Well, there was some benefit to that in the past. It wasn't always the best answer, to be honest, but it was a little bit of a more solid answer before the passage of the Secure Act. Now with the Secure Act, we actually have more options to use trust and even potentially through a will to make sure that we're going to minimize taxes and make sure that the assets are going to be distributed properly. I have a separate video about that, so you might want to check back and look at one of the other videos, but today's video is simply about what is a retirement asset, because really it's the importance of just distinguishing what type of asset is this, okay? So the type of asset we're talking about, and I actually did a presentation. I found one of my old presentations that I did to the probate lawyers in the state of Michigan. And so I put up this technical definition. You can read through the technical definition as you want. I'm going to cut through all of the more complicated part of it, but a lot of people, they like to see the complicated part. They like to see the technical part of it. So that's the definition. I put it up there. But what we really are talking about is any kind of IRA, 401k, 457, 403, or Roths. Now, those are going to seem very different, right? The IRA and the Roth seem very different, but they all are under that category of retirement assets that I'm referring to in this video. And what I mean by how we have to treat it differently as it relates to your will and your trust, okay? So what's really important, let's just, cut to the chase. Really what we're talking about is your IRA, your 401k. Sometimes it's a qualified annuity. That's where this sometimes it seems a little bit more hidden. A 403b, 457, even sometimes things like health savings accounts, that would be considered a qualified fund. But the other type of qualified fund is going to be your Roths. Now, most of the time when somebody has a Roth, they fully understand that because they were very intentional about getting that Roth, either converting to a Roth or contributing to a Roth, and so they have a pretty good understanding of that. But it gets a little bit more confusing whether it's a Roth or a traditional IRA, because people say, well, no, that is an annuity, or that is a CD account, a certificate of deposit at the bank. Well, a CD at the bank could be a Roth IRA, or it could be a traditional IRA. An annuity could be a retirement asset or not a retirement asset. So an annuity, often they're classified, you'll even see it on the form sometimes, it says NQ or Q. NQ is non-qualified, meaning it's not a retirement asset, or Q, qualified, and sometimes it just says the word qualified. But the idea is you can't tell whether it's a retirement asset by what type of account it is. You could have a retirement account that is a money market, an investment account, a mutual fund, an investment account, even real estate sometimes, although that's a little more rare, but a CD, a demand note account, any of those things. And so just by saying, oh, well, this is a CD, that doesn't tell me whether or not it's a retirement account. And it's really important to distinguish that because we're going to treat that differently as it interacts with your will or your trust. And now it's really important that we know that, because now your will or a trust has to be compliant with this new Secure Act. Not only compliant, but take advantage of the new Secure Act to make sure that we minimize the taxes and get more money to the family, okay? And take advantage of all the options that are incorporated into the Secure Act. So it's really important for us to distinguish that. And so the big question is, do you have retirement assets? Because if you do, then we probably need to update your legal documents, okay? If you don't, then maybe we don't, because depending on what your age is, you might not be acquiring new retirement assets once you get to the age of 70 or 80. Typically, we don't open up new retirement assets at that stage in life. So we don't have to too much worry about that. But if you have any accounts that have required minimum distributions, for example, that's one thing to tell us that if it has a required minimum distribution, it's definitely a retirement asset. Now, Roths don't have required minimum distribution. So when it's a Roth, it makes it even more complicated to figure it out, because we say, okay, we need to actually go to the source and say, is this a retirement account or not? Is this a Roth? Like I say, most people understand when they have a Roth because that was a more intentional move. But the idea is that you need to distinguish between what is a retirement account and what is not a retirement account. Another way that we determine if it's a retirement account is, where did the money come from? Was it money that you just saved up through the years, or you used it from the sale of the house and you invested it, or some other form where you just kind of accumulated that money? Or did it come from a retirement plan that you had in employment? So a lot of times when we retire, we roll it over into an investment account. Well, that rollover is now a retirement account, typically an IRA, individual retirement account. But that IRA could be in the form of an annuity, or it could be in the form of a mutual fund, or it could be in the form of a CD at the bank, or a money market at the bank, or things like that. So just because the type of the account says it's a money market doesn't mean it's not a retirement account. We've got to look at it from the standpoint of, where did that money come from? Do you have required minimum distributions? And a lot of times the best answer is just go to the source and say, is this a retirement account or is it not a retirement account? Because again, if it's a Roth that doesn't have required minimum distributions, if it is a regular retirement account like an IRA, traditional retirement account, you only have those required minimum distributions after a certain age, which is traditionally there's a formula, but basically let's say 71. Once you turn 71, probably going to end up having required minimum distributions on a traditional. They've actually changed that in the SECURE Act, so it's now 72, and there's actually a formula for that too. Congress doesn't make anything easy on this. But the idea is you have to distinguish, and we'll help you with this as you call us. We'll try to distinguish whether or not this is a retirement account or not. But if you have retirement accounts in any substantial amount, or whatever you consider substantial, then we probably need to update your legal documents accordingly. Thanks, folks, and feel free to give us a call if you have questions about this, and schedule a time with us so that if you either redid the documents or if somebody else did your will or trust, we can make sure that you're compliant with this new law and you get the best advantages for your family. Thanks.